In the lonely hut where Dafe and his mother called home, the sound of the celebration was a constant mocking rumble. In the public square, drums thundered the arrival of royals and chiefs, and cheers rose in waves as wealthy suitors attempted to charm the queen. But here, in their poorly constructed hut at the edges of the city, the only sound was the low rhythmic sigh of the wind against the leaky roofing. Dafa had been ready for a while now. He was clean and his hair neatly brushed. He was wearing the brand new linen tunic his mother had screamed and saved to buy. He sat on the earthen floor, legs crossed, his posture unnaturally stiff. A small bowl of boiled yams, dribbled with palm oil, sat ignored in front of him, cooling in the hot, close air. His mother, whose face carried the sorrows the kingdom had delivered, watched him in silence. She could feel the nerves tightening the veins in her son's neck. Lately, she couldn't account for his time or whereabouts. She was aware he had taken on the odd job of wandering into the dark forest, seeking valuable animals and plants to sell to the young mages who practiced their crafts. When he had told her he planned to present himself to Queen Zara to be considered a suitor, she had laughed until tears ran down her face. She had woken the next day convinced he was delusional, or worse, that he had been cursed with insanity by an evil spirit in the dark forest. He wouldn't tell her anything, just that he would find a way to appear before the queen, and if it was meant to happen, it would. But it never would. They had both been rooted in reality and the pessimism of it for too long. After the death of her husband, his family had wasted no time in stripping her of his name, lands, and properties. She had once appeared before the queen herself to make her case for justice. But when the then teenage queen discovered she had come from a former enemy kingdom, she ended up merely making a desperate case to remain alive. Even in the most ridiculous of realities, where she had the choice, she would not choose that arrogant, ignorant girl to be with her son. Yet, there was something else Dafe wasn't telling her. She could feel it in the air that separated them. For the past few days, he had not looked her in the eyes. He rushed out of the hut before dawn and returned when it was too late to speak. And now, hidden behind his back, was a suspicious-looking god with markings she did not recognize.
Dafe's mother moved with a quiet grace, born of years spent tending to wounds and weaving life back from the brink. She approached her son now, a small, worn piece of cloth wrapping something dear to her in her hands. Days earlier, she had tried to stir him, even presenting a new tunic she knew he would like, hoping to light that familiar spark in his eyes, the one that spoke of defiance and hope. It had barely worked. She sat opposite him now, careful not to look at the suspicious god tucked behind his hip, and began to speak, her voice a low, steady thread that seemed to pull the past into the present. Dafe, she called him softly, preparing to open a wound she never spoke of. The first time I saw your father, our village had burned for 3 days, and he had found me sitting among the ruins. My wrapper was torn and my hands were blistered from dragging what little I could save. I was too tired to cry and too proud to beg. She leaned forward slightly, her gaze fixed on the ground. He was one of the men sent to gather the survivors. His eyes had that look men wear after too much killing, open but far away. When he saw me, he hesitated. I think it was the calabash of herbs in my lap. I had been tending to a wounded child who didn't make it through the night. The chairs from the distant square provided a chilling contrast to the intimacy of her confession. I was kept apart in the camp, the daughter of a fallen chief, good for ransom. He brought me water, then food, then silence, that rare kind that feels like a truce. I hated him at first, but kindness is a quiet invader. The war had stripped us both, stripped me of a home and him of the ability to see the beauty in life. Maybe that is why we clung to each other, two ruins trying to build something out of the ashes. She lifted the piece of cloth in her palms and began to slowly unwrap it. When the ransom came, I could have left. I should have, but I stayed. The war was over, and peace like us was something neither side truly trusted, so we made our own. The cloth fell away to unveil a simple necklace, a clay bead, smooth and dark with age, tied to a thin leather string. She looked at it with profound fondness, like it was a jar of preserved memories. "This is all I have from my home." She held Dafe's hands open and placed the necklace gently on his palms. It was then that she felt it. His hands were shaking violently. He finally looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time in days, and the sight of his face, wet with sudden desperate tears, made her heart stop. "There's a chance I don't return today, Mama," he choked out, his voice thick with tears now. "If that happens, if they kill me, I want you to forgive me." She frowned in confusion, her weathered hands cupping his wet jaws. Her touch was the only thing holding him together. "The Queen's rejection is not death, Dafe. It is if they discover my love-binding spell," he replied. His mother froze, her eyes hanging open, pupils wide as she watched her son. The confession hit her with the force of a physical blow, silencing the cheers from the distant square. The words echoed the very darkness that had consumed the kingdom, the same darkness Queen Zara haunted with fire. Love-binding spell?" she whispered, her voice fractured. "That is dark magic, Dafe. Where did you... Who?" "I met a witch in the dark forest, Mama," he told her. She processed the information slowly, her face twisting into a mask of dawning horror. With a jerky movement, she reached behind him and snatched the gourd, inspecting the unfamiliar wicked markings etched on its surface. Her heart began to beat violently, a drum of fear in the close space of the hut. "What does this witch want in return?" she asked, her voice low and dangerous. "Access to the Queen's blood," Dafe mumbled. She stared at him, the gourd feeling heavy and cold in her palm. Access to the Queen's blood. Her mind raced. The mage Maro had saved the kingdom by fighting off a dark witch's plague. Now her son was dealing with another, but she knew the old tales. "And you think that is all?" she challenged, her eyes hardening with terrible knowledge. "Dafe, a love-binding spell is a dark ritual. It is never meant for joy. It is a punishment for unrequited desire. It is nothing but destruction that benefits no one." Her voice rose, thick with dread. "Once sealed, two souls are stitched together in yearning. They will be one. They will feel each other's ache, each other's dreams, and each other's decay. You will live bound to the woman who despised your own mother, and you will both be hollowed out by a magic that only serves this dark witch." She held the gourd out to him, her hands trembling. "You have been the one bright spark in my life all these years, the only reason I still believe in goodness in this kingdom. I cannot bear to lose you to this darkness." Tears streamed down her face. "Is your father's name, his lost title, his forgotten lands and properties truly worth trading your soul and your very happiness for?" Dafe stared at her, then at the gourd containing the potion he was to drink right before appearing before the queen. He saw the truth in her eyes, felt the icy grip of the spell's future decay on his own heart. With a shuddering breath, he took the gourd from her hand, tucked it into his tunic, and walked out of the hut, leaving his mother weeping amidst the silence and the distant, thunderous cheers.
Dafe moved through the bustling streets like a ghost, the heavy linens of his new attire feeling like a costume he might be stripped off at any moment. With every step, his mother's words echoed, decay, you will both be hollowed out. What, trading your soul? He thought of his father, not the respected man his mother loved, but the one whose family had turned their backs on his widow and son, whose honor was so easily stripped away. He thought of Queen Zara, whose cold decree had legitimized that wickedness, solidifying their status as outcasts. He made his way to the great public square, the thunder of the drums and the roar of the crowd growing deafening. He pressed against the edges of the throng, his head bowed, hiding his face whenever he neared a guard or a person who might recognize him from the fringes of the city. He was an interloper, and his only protection was his disguise and the chaos of the event. He finally arrived at the edge of the open space. It was here that Maru, the Grand Mage, made his audacious display. The subsequent roar of the crowd, fueled by awe and excitement, created the perfect blinding confusion Daffy needed. His hand went to the gourd tucked into his tunic. Tari's final instruction: drink this just before your appearance. He pulled the gourd out, its surface cold and slick against the sweating palm. The vile black potion inside seemed to writhe. In that moment, he saw not a king's future, but a lifetime chained to a decaying soul, a punishment for both himself and the woman he was meant to hate. With a shuddering intake of breath, Daffy tightened his grip, not to drink, but to smash. He held his breath, dropped the gourd onto the floor, and released the air in a silent puff of defiance. The liquid splashed harmlessly, lost in the noise and chaos. He stepped out of the crowd and into the open court before the queen. He was alone, unannounced, and without any gift. He saw Zara standing on the platform, poised to speak after Maro's display. Their eyes locked across the space. He had expected to see a heartless, selfish, conniving human, the tyrant who sent witches to the flame and banished anyone she didn't trust to live lives of nothingness. Instead, he saw a beautiful woman staring back at him, her face strained by years of burdens, her pose tense with fear. In that instant, the consuming anger and crushing nervousness inside him completely dissipated, replaced by a strange, sudden calm. For some reason, the queen smiled at him, and he smiled back.